go on to another trend is the high-rise construction of, condominiums and even apartments is definitely flatline right now. I mean, we haven't had a groundbreaking for a high-rise for-sale property since 2020, and based on the math I'm looking at, they probably won't pencil for another 5 years.
I think you're absolutely right. A couple of things come into play. You mentioned supply, new construction. We know how expensive it is. And again, we look at the market, very easy to tell what's going on, what's in the mindset of developers. If they're not putting cranes up, then they know that it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So they are really the ones that are going to be directing the market or their perception of it. So very little in the way of new construction because of price, as you said, as well as time. Same way as you mentioned with apartments. We got overbuilt, that is flatlined as well. But what's more interesting to me is that going through COVID, we saw that migration out of the city.
That's right.
We saw massive growth in city. Why? Well, going back the last couple of decades, well, there's a value to our time. We will pay more to live closer to where we need to be, in addition to the cultural, social amenities that an urban market offers. Well, through COVID, the opposite happened. Remote working. So we actually saw that drive to buy occur again.
Right.
I can live further out. Okay, if I don't have to come into the office at all, or even if it's a couple of days a week,
right.
Well, then, I'll put up with a lousy commute. And so we've seen a exponential downside in terms of the impact of COVID on urban housing prices. Yeah, the urban condo market got hit very hard. Is it bottoming out now? I think that it is.
I do too.
But at a price level now, I think it's compelling. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to see prices double in the next 12 months or anything like it.
Right.
However, I don't think they're going to go down further. I think we've bottomed out. So I think this is actually a very good opportunity for buyers to get in now at a price point which you just would not have seen had it not been for COVID.
Well, and those folks that moved out to a salmon stream are sometimes moving back in. I mean, the mandates to work, whether it's Amazon or other tech employment, are wanting to see more of their staff in the office. And there is a tremendous overhang of commercial office space, which we should touch on, because is that a negative thing? Probably not great to be a landlord, but is it a good thing for new startup companies and venture capitalists to invest in the next Amazon that doesn't have to start in a garage? It can start in a Class A office building at pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, it's not good to be a landlord, not good to be a bank either, in that respect. We've seen massive cuts on valuations of commercial space because of how the value of an office building is calculated. It's based upon rent and occupancy.
Sure.
So it's a great cap rate. So based upon that, yeah, we are certainly going to see some transactions at very, very low prices, I think, in the commercial side. That will then potentially allow somebody or entity to buy that building to then, before they bring it back to market, make changes. We've got a lot of employees now saying, okay, I get going back to the office, but I want you to do this, that, and the other. So I think you can do that at a low price point. And I think at the same time, you've got businesses moving in who obviously are rate conscious. If you can get back in, you're not paying $60, $70 a square foot in rent, well, then, it can make sense. And that, as you mentioned earlier, I think it's going to be another genesis that's going to allow people to say, okay, I'm going to be back in the office. I know that. The office is a place I don't mind being now because of the changes that were made to it. Yeah, maybe it's time to take another look at the urban market. So out of all the asset classes, I'd say both residential and commercial, I'm most excited about the urban condo market. I think that that's one over the longer term. I think it's going to do remarkably well.
Well, so are buyers. I mean, we are seeing a bottom-up, acquisition trend at some of the later developments that had the most inventory, and that's a lot of them are the infill renters that are becoming first-time home buyers. People that moved out are now moving back in. They understand the trends. You can see it on 520, I-90, I-5 when you see the traffic increases year over year because downtown's daytime population is resurging. It's still only about 2/3 of what it was before the pandemic, but we have that runway to grow now because we have the housing, we have the job growth, we have the inventory of office space, great advancements made along the waterfront and the convention center. These are all multi-billion-dollar investments into the vitality of downtown. And, we'll see how it plays out with the mayor's race. There has been great improvements and strides made about security priority and intervention, with some of the social problems that downtown has faced. And a lot of the West Coast gateway cities have faced these problems.
Again, you mentioned traffic. I said I was coming into Seattle yesterday, rush hour, and come from the north end. Remarkable. I mean, the traffic really didn't free up until north of Everett. So we are seeing people come back into the office. That is only going to continue. No question about it. Are there still issues downtown? Yeah, I think it would be remiss, as you mentioned, say, there are certainly problems still, and there are more overhangs, I would argue, from council members who are no longer in City Hall. The grand experiment did not work, and so those still need to be addressed. Are efforts being made? Sure. Is it better now than it was? Absolutely.
Yes.
More inroads need to be made, but again, that's going to be additive in terms of what overall demand for urban residences, as that will continue to get better. Well, that's going to continue to add more people looking at downtown in a different way. We're going to start seeing some more retail come back into our urban market. That again is very important in terms of residents. Exactly.
Well, you mentioned, we were a very fast-growing city for the last 2 decades. I know from 2010, we were very active also in the high-rise space, and there were over 40,000 multifamily housing units that were delivered within walking distance of each other. And, the majority, actually 94%, was built for rent, not for sale, which is a whole other policy conversation about the Condominium Act and the risk profile for developers. But I say that because there are 4 or 5 premier condominium towers that were delivered, and there's less than 500 units unsold now. For the first time in literally more than a decade, we are finding ourselves in this dearth of new condominium supply. You're saying buy the dip. Give us some perspective on where the new construction costs are and what you would need to see in a pre-sale value to pencil a new condominium tower today.
As we keep on coming back to the fact that we're not seeing any cranes downtown.
You're right. There's a reason.
The conversations that I've had and some math that I've done on the back of an envelope, I think today, all in, new construction, type 1 high-rise building, you've got to be looking easily at over $1,800 a square foot to build it.
Right.
Over time, unless you're selling those for well in excess of $2,000 a square foot, you're not making any money.
Right.
And so now that's 500 square foot for $1 million. That's pretty rare air. So I think, we're not seeing it because builders know what they do, and they have been put on this planet to do one thing: to build housing. If they're not, there's a reason why they're not.
Right.
Because they're not making money if they're not building.
Yeah.
And they're looking at the numbers the same way I am, and it just does not make sense for them to go ahead. So you've got very few, as you mentioned, units in the premium premier buildings that were delivered. That's is a good thing. So we're not seeing additional supply.
Yep.
Unlikely to, as we've said already. We're not going to see much more in the way of supply. And I think you're right. I'd be surprised if any new project breaks ground before 2030.
Well, and the average sales price of new construction of recent years is between $950 and $1,100 per square foot, depending on which building that you're looking at. And if the replacement cost is nearly twice that, you can see what needs to happen in the resale market and for pre-sales to benefit by new towers. The prices have to go up. So if we don't feel like prices are eroding further after this correction and people are coming back downtown, the supply is finite, what you see is what you get for inventory, then it's a pretty safe place to make an investment and ride that next wave.
I think you're absolutely right. I tend to not look so often at sale prices. I tend to look at list prices because sale prices are a lagging indicator. That was the world of 3 months ago, or where rates were that 4 months ago.
Sure.
Okay, what people are asking, that's the view of the future. We saw significant declines. That pace of drop in list prices certainly is over in a lot of markets. And so that, I think, is the first thing anyone wants to see. If all of a sudden transactions are occurring, which we know they are, prices have been set or reset, well, then it's only going to be upwards from here.
Well, and you look at San Francisco as a harbinger of things to come for Seattle sometimes, and they're seeing reinvestment in commercial because it's reset values, and new companies are obviously riding some of the wave with AI, like we talked about earlier, and housing has followed, and we're seeing the same in Manhattan and, and now in Seattle.
Yeah, and actually I was giving a speech in Manhattan a few weeks ago, and brokers there were saying very much the same thing. They haven't really gone anywhere for the last 3 years price-wise. Now it's starting to see things kick into gear again. And those are some pretty heady prices when you think about condos, certainly down the financial district. So if you're seeing it there, yes, the Bay Area certainly hit very, very hard. Affordability is worse than we see here. Similar social problems. In fact, I'd say they're worse there than they are here. But ultimately, when you add all these different components together, of the return to work, of a reset of pricing, of where mortgage rates are going, and of the desire and a reemergence of downtown, checks a lot of boxes that people need to have checked before they say, okay, yeah, now it's time for me to jump in.
So you're not betting against Seattle?
People have bet against Seattle for decades, and guess what? They've always been wrong.